Hey guys, Wade Willis here for Wade's Weeb Reviews. Coming here to talk to you guys today about the original Higurashi When They Cry. So, we have the new series coming out, and they kind of surprised us by telling us it is not exactly a remake. It's kind of a sequel, but they said if you haven't seen the original, you could still watch the new one. Well, I started watching the original, and I'm going to be doing reviews on every arc in the original series. So if you've already watched the original, or maybe you don't have access to it because it is kind of difficult to find, I'm going to be uploading these videos like every few days each arc. So probably in about 2 weeks I should have every single arc done, and you will be caught up to date with everything. Guys, and before I go any further, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do. I'll be covering, again, all this Higurashi stuff and a ton of other shows this season as well. And if you like the video, please leave a like. It helps a lot. Today we're talking about the first arc in the OG series, which is Spirited Away by the Demon. And this is episodes 1 through 4. It's very similar to the new series. It starts off with Keiichi-kun just going beast mode with a baseball bat, smashing people's heads in. And then they go into the OP for the Higurashi series, the original, which that song is one of my favorite openings to an anime ever, for sure. And visually, it's just really cool too. That, like, the first few minutes of just having, seeing someone going crazy, and then that opening might be the best way to start an anime ever. So they start you off hardcore, and then most of the episode is very like moe focused. They're playing games with each other in the club, and I don't know, it's just pretty cute. This episode is almost exactly like episode 1 for the new episode. Keiichi also meets Tamatake, who is a photographer that comes into town here and there. And Keiichi-kun finds out about the grisly murder that happened like 4 years ago, where someone was murdered. One of the people who murdered him is still at large, and one of his limbs is still missing, I believe his arm. And he finds out about this while he's at the dump with Reina. She's dumpster diving like a weirdo, and Keiichi is told this by Tamataki. Now, Keiichi-kun asks Reina and Mion about this, and they brush it off, and it's the way they reacted, how quick they are, it is kind of jarring with how they normally are. Like, as I said, it's very like moe and fun, and then they just like a switch flips and they deny everything. So again, similar to the new new show. When she was at the dump, she found a Kenta-kun, which is Colonel Sanders, and she wants help getting him out because he's down deep in there. So Keiichi-kun agrees to help her out, and as he's trying to help her out, they realize, okay, it's too far in here. She's going to need to get something to help like kind of pull him out, because he's trapped under all this stuff, and it's actually massive. And when she goes to leave, Keiichi-kun finds an article confirming that this dismemberment, this grisly murder, actually happened. The thing that Mion and Reina brushed off and said like didn't happen. So he's obviously a bit worried, and they end the episode with like, you see Reina with a cleaver kind of behind him looking like a creeper. Now, episode 2 picks up right where we left off. Keiichi turns around, sees Reina with the cleaver, freaks out, as anyone would when someone is creepily like close behind them and you didn't hear them walk up and they have a cleaver behind you. Now, this episode jumps forward to the festival a lot quicker than the new version, and Keiichi meets meets up with Tamatake and Takano, who's this like cute blonde chick who's friends with Tamatake, the photographer, and they tell him about the Oyashiro curse, which is people have been dying every year at this cotton drifting festival that's going on, and the past 4 years someone has died every time. So he finds out about this. He's kind of like creeped out a bit. Not gonna lie, if I found that out, I would be trying to get the hell out of that town as soon as possible, but that's just me. Then Keiichi is at school, and he gets called out of class by this guy Oishi, this police officer. Now Oishi he kind of is grilling him, asking him if he saw Tamatake and Takano the night before at the festival. He tells him yes. And he tells him, hey, like, Takano is gone, and Tomatake we found him dead, and he clawed at his throat, and they don't say this, but he said they hit an artery that he shouldn't, which is, I'm assuming, the carotid artery. So, and they found that there was, like, no drugs in his system or anything like that. Oishi tells him this stuff and asks Keiichi, like, hey, dude, like, we need you to be an informant for us, and if you see anything crazy, let us know. Now, this is kind of an issue I have with police officers, how they're portrayed in a lot of things and how they actually do things. Anytime you see someone who's an informant in a show, especially fiction, you're like, this fool's dying, or the police officer is going to put him in a horrible position that is going to put his life in danger. So, soon as he asked to be an informant, I was like, not looking good for the main character right now. Keiichi knows that Reina and Mion have been lying about stuff in the past, especially they kind of said no grisly attacks happened before, there was no murder, and he starts kind of grilling Reina, and not really holding the cards to his chest that he is now an informant, in my opinion. And he starts asking her questions and is like, hey, are you guys keeping secrets from me? And then Reina asks him, like, are you keeping secrets from me? And he tries to lie, but he's horrible at it. And then she calls him out saying, like, hey, when you said you went to, like, the school office, you didn't actually go there. And I know you were talking to some old man in a car. So she had eyes on him somehow, and he's obviously uncomfortable in this situation. And you see, again, there's like a switch that's flipped, and she has like, her eyes get kind of crazy. I believe they get like a cat here. Not sure, but sometimes they have those slits like a cat. Not sure if it happens first time at this point, but she does do that in the future. Mad creepy here. And this is a point where your boy needs to realize maybe I'm biting off more than I can chew. Unfortunately, he does not necessarily realize that at that point. Keiichi's back at home, and Oishi calls him and is asking him if he learned anything at school, and then he's kind of given the intel on Reina, saying saying that stuff's a bit suspicious. And Oishi tells him about Satoshi, which I forgot to mention that. He figures out that there's this guy named Satoshi, and all the girls are kind of, when he's asking about this person who transferred, they're kind of brushing it off how they normally act when they're lying. They answer like way too quick, and they're like, yeah, he just transferred. Not a big deal, dude. He's kind of bothered by this. Oishi tells Keiichi about the whole spirited away thing with the demon. So that someone dies, and then then there's another person that is sacrificed by being spirited away. Oishi also tells him about how everything, like a lot of the stuff was Satoshi, and that it doesn't look like he transferred, more looks like he's missing. Then this is where this is probably like where I realized the pace for this show is gonna go really quick. And his dad knocks on his door and has 2 cups of tea, and Keiichi's like, what's this for? And his dad tells him like you don't have to hide anything from me. I know Reina's up here. Like, she went up, and Reina's not there. And Keiichi realizes Reina just came in and was probably listening to everything he said with Oishi. Yeah, honestly, like for me, this is where I really started getting into the original show. Like at the end of episode 2, I'm like, all right, they're going for it here. The pace is going a lot faster than I expected, especially with like episode 1 is like there's so much moe stuff. I did not expect episode 2 to really like go ham with the speed, because now and I have to note the writing in this is so good, because let's be real, the animation is not great in this show. It's old, whatever, and the animation's just not great. But time and time again in this show, like I feel like extremely uncomfortable. I'm creeped out because of how good the writing, the music, like and just the sounds that they make in the show is like, it's so jarring and disturbing. Like, it's so fantastic, and it gets me really excited for this sequel that's going on right now. Episode 3 in this 4-episode arc, what does Keiichi do? Calls in sick from school. Yeah, I would be doing the same thing if I realized I had a stalker who has access to a meat cleaver. I would not be pumped to go to school. And when the people who are your 2 best friends in the class, you know they've been lying to you and you're suspicious that they maybe killed people, I wouldn't feel great about going to school. He ends up meeting with Oishi at a restaurant, and this is where Oishi really gives him a ton of intel. Oishi tells him, hey, like all of these deaths and these disappearances are traced back to your friends. So the first death, there was like the construction person, the construction manager, like a few weeks before his death, he had a major altercation with Mion, and I believe he had a few altercations with her. Okay, not looking good. Second one, the couple that died was actually Satoko's parents, who were, I believe they were proponents of the dam. So then you got, Satoko, the blonde girl, if you guys can't remember. So her parents dead. Then the third year, a priest and his wife die. And that is Rika's parents. They're really cute, girl with the blue hair. Fourth year was Satoko's aunt, who I'll get into her later. She's a piece of work. She is killed by, they say at this point, it was a drug addict. It's fishy. There was like no real evidence of the drug addict. I believe he died in custody or something like that. So they say it was a drug addict. And then Satoshi, who is actually Satoko's brother, is the one that disappeared. His his like 3 friends are really involved in this whole thing. And Keiichi's like, oh, well, like, Reina is kind of, like, she doesn't have an issue, at least. I believe this is the episode where Oishi tells Satoshi, like, hey, actually, Reina does have ties to this city. She grew up here before grade school, and then she went away, and um, she freaked out at her school, broke all this glass and stuff, had this freak out at school, and then she was medicated by doctors and stuff. They said that she had they didn't say like what she had mentally wrong with her, but she freaked out. And there was like a history of her having mental breakdowns, and she said for all of them that it was because of Oyashiro, the god for the town. And she said that he would be following her, and when she was sleeping he would be like standing over her bed and everything. So everything's traced back to that, and she said that she had the curse. In one of the earlier episodes, this is important and I bring it up now, when you hear Reina talking to Mion about Takano, and Mion mentions that Reina was able to like get out of because they bring up the Oyashiro curse, and that Reina was able to, I can't remember the wording exactly, but Reina was able to get out of it. So Keiichi finds all this stuff out, heads home, and he gets a beautiful surprise from Mion and Reina visiting him, and they brought him some dinner, and apparently it's like rice balls, and there's a few in there, but Reina made one of them, and she asks Keiichi, like, I wonder if you can guess which one I made. They call him and they ask him like, oh, you went out for lunch and stuff, and they ask like, is this person that you went out with, it's the same person that you were talking to before? So Keiichi is he's very like cornered and feels uncomfortable, and you see the flip switch a few times where they start getting like, Mion and Reina start getting like kind of crazy towards him, not full beast mode, but it is very uncomfortable, and as the audience we know it's not looking good for Keiichi. Keiichi goes into his house to eat the meal, and they're labeled A through E. He decides to take a bite out of the rice ball E first, and he's just like horrified, and you're like, what the hell happened? Like, is it poison? Like, I thought there was gonna be like I don't know, like poop or maggots or something in there, and it just tasted horrible. But then you see there was a needle in there, and you're like, oh shit, that's fucked up. And this is where Keiichi really starts to break. He was kind of like holding it together before that point, despite all the bad things that were happening. Like, I was actually somewhat impressed by how he was holding it together, because if those things happened to me, I probably would have already like broken. But this, he like kind of snaps here. He throws the food all over the place. When he goes to school the next day, he grabs a baseball bat, and he kind of is just hanging out with the baseball bat, swinging it around and stuff. And you just see like Keiichi's starting to lose his mind. He's trying to go home from school, and Reina's walking with him. He doesn't want to be around her anymore. She did put a needle in his food. I wouldn't be a fan of that person either. And she says like, hey, like, why are you're acting just like him? And she's kind of like beating around the bush a little bit, and he's like, what are you talking about? She says like, Satoshi did the same thing before he transferred, and he got it bad and was swinging it around and stuff, and started hanging by himself. And she's like, you even have his bat. And then he looks and sees that it is Satoshi's bat. I forgot to mention, on the way to school, a van did try to hit him, which is important to note. And then he gets home, calls Oishi, and kind of is letting him know about the van thing, and that there was a needle put in his food, but miraculously everything is cleaned up. Oh, and another super important part, Keiichi starts writing like notes kind of talking about how someone's trying to kill him and stuff, and that he's probably going to end up dying or whatever, and he writes a note and puts it in his clock. So overall, again, it's starting to like really pick up here. Episode 3 was also awesome, and again got even more disturbing than the previous one. And then episode 4, the final episode of this arc. Someone is at the door. He's home alone. He unlocks it, and then it's like opened, and it's Reina. And this is where Keiichi completely snaps. And Reina is being a total psychopath, like reaching her hand in, trying to unlock the door. And then Keiichi just starts slamming her hand in the door. And like, it might have been 10 times. And you just see like his face is crazed, and he's just destroying her hand. Then he goes back to the phone. He was talking to Oishi, and Oishi tells him that Reina actually beat the shit out of 3 other students when she had her freak out at the other school with a bat. One of the guys has a damaged eye, but none of the students like pressed charges or anything, so it was kind of like brushed under the rug. So you kind of see that Reina did have kind of like more of a violent past. So again, it was almost like she was trying to break in. She did have food, but you don't want to eat her food anymore. He slams her hand, and we're like, oh my gosh. Then you find out that she beat the shit out of some students with a bat, and you're like, oh my gosh, he needs like to stay away from this girl. And it's like pouring rain, and he goes to like close his window, and he looks out, and he's still on the phone with Oishi, and he sees that Reina's just like muttering something. She's like holding the food still, just no umbrella, and it's just pouring on her, and she's just like mouthing something, and she's saying like gomenasai, like over and over again. So I'm sorry in English. And he's just like, what the hell? So again, we're like, when this is going on, I'm like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, okay, what the hell's gonna happen? The next day, Mion tries to approach Keiichi, and it doesn't go well. Both of them end up kind of like freaking out on each other at different points. Mion eventually says that she should have killed the police officer Oishi when she had a chance last year, but she let him live because he was supposed to retire this year. Keiichi leaves school, and he has the bat. He's scared though, and he's like freaked out. And Reina finds him. She is the cleaver. Not really a good sign. And this part is so creepy, the way she's acting with him. He's trying to run away, and then these dudes come out of the nowhere with out of the bushes. He gets hit in the head, and then he wakes up in his house, and Mion and Reina are nursing him back to health. They're like, I think they're like trying to feed him and stuff, and then eventually they're like holding him down, and they pull out like a syringe, and he absolutely loses it. And this is where the first scene of the first episode, him with the bat, this is where he goes ham. Honestly, I thought that first scene was going to be like the end of the of this season. I didn't expect it to be this first arc, so that was really surprising to me, seeing him flip out, or I thought it would be a different arc, but alas, it's this arc. Beats the shit out of him, grabs a syringe, he puts it in the clock. Eventually he like calls Oishi from a telephone booth, and is kind of clawing at himself, like doesn't want to look behind him. He knows that Oyashiro is behind him, and they find him dead with his throat clawed by himself. And then you see the note written to himself, and it looks like some parts are missing from the note, and then the syringe is gone, so you're like, I guess the police are in on this somehow, or someone has someone inside, like an inside cop that got rid of the syringe. So that's where we're left at, and that's what we're thinking, at least at the end of this arc. But yeah, guys, I'd love to know what you guys thought about this arc. Did this arc draw you in like it did for me? Because I'm not gonna lie, I watched this arc and then I think I finished the season 2 days after I finished this arc. So I really kind of jammed through this, and yeah, I'm excited to see what they incorporate from this arc into the new show, because I think that they're gonna take things from certain arcs and put it in, maybe condense some things, or make us think that arcs are going to be the same as from the past show, and then kind of flip it on its head. So I'm super excited. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna kind of be doing these summaries and giving my thoughts on the arcs as I'm going along. If you have any suggestions for something you want me to cover in each arc, just let me know in the comments below. But yeah, guys, I'm pumped. I'm going to be doing one of these videos for every arc, and my goal is to have at least the first season done by the end of this week. So I got my fingers crossed for that, and I will have the rest of the arcs done hopefully by next week as well.